There has been an update in the Officer Kevin Apple murder trial. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I will attach the video that I did last week to the end of this video. But I'm talking about Arkansas versus Shauna Ray Cash. Shauna Cash was charged with capital murder and other charges in 2021 after she pinned a Pea Ridge officer between her vehicle and his vehicle, then completely ran over him and dragged him for at least 150 feet. This was all after there was a bolo put out for the car that Shauna Cash was driving after she and her friend, boyfriend, whatever he was, stole a check out of a mailbox from a home in Rogers, Arkansas. A capital murder conviction in Arkansas carries life in prison without the possibility of parole or the death penalty. Now, the death penalty wasn't waived for Shauna or for her co defendant that will be going on trial in March. But Shauna went on trial. Her jury selection for her trial started last week on Monday, and her trial has completed. So today, February 8th, 2024, the jury did come back with a verdict. It is a guilty verdict. They are now going into the sentencing phase where they will decide if Shauna Cash will spend life in prison or if she will be sentenced to death. And I got to be honest with you guys, I don't think that she'll be sentenced to the death penalty at all. Of course, I will be more than happy to admit that I'm wrong if that happens, but the last woman that was sentenced to death in the state of Arkansas was sentenced in 1998. She murdered her two children, and she was executed in 2000. So it has been 26 years, and I just don't see that happening now. I'm not saying that she maybe wouldn't deserve that penalty. Obviously, what she did was awful. Nobody can argue that point, and maybe it will change. Maybe they will issue the death penalty over the death of an officer, but I don't see it happening, just being honest. What do you think? Will she be sentenced to death or will she be sentenced to life? Of course, I will update when the sentence is announced. Let's talk about a death penalty case that is happening right now in Arkansas. In fact, the trial is set to start next week. The case that I'm talking about is the 2021 murder of Pea Ridge officer Kevin Apple. The two people that were arrested for this murder are Shauna Cash and Elijah Andonzola. Now, Elijah will not be going on trial until March. The jury selection for Shauna Cash's trial started January 29th, and the trial itself is set to start next week. Do you remember this case? I do remember hearing about this case when it happened and feeling for the officer and his family when he died and thinking it's just a crazy case. I don't know. I just wouldn't expect that anything like this could happen at the gas station up the road. Capital cases take a long time to go to trial. This case is no different. It has been 2.5 years since the events of that day. Earlier in the day, on June 26, 2021, the Rogers Police Department put out a BOLO, a be on the lookout, for two suspects that were driving a 90s model blue Jeep Grand Cherokee. This vehicle got away from officers while they were involved in a police chase after some events happened at Walgreens. It all started on South 20th Street in Rogers when a man put a check inside of his mailbox and put the flag up. He was sending out the check to pay for some utilities, and he happened to see a 90s model Jeep Grand Cherokee that was kind of acting weird up and down the street. His wife said that the vehicle did something weird by the mailbox, and then she said she saw one of the people in the Jeep Grand Cherokee open the mailbox and take off. The husband confirmed that the check was gone from the mailbox, and he decided to chase the Jeep Grand Cherokee down. And I'm not really faulting him because I would have been upset too, but he was able to follow the Jeep Grand Cherokee until it pulled into a Walgreens where he got out of his vehicle and pulled a gun on the two occupants of the vehicle and ordered them to get out of their vehicle. They laid down on the ground. He put his gun up and called 911. I think at that time they jumped back in their vehicle and they drove off. By the time Rogers police got to that Walgreens, they were able to chase the Jeep Grand Cherokee, but like I said, the Jeep Grand Cherokee got away. So they went back to the people that were in the Walgreens parking lot to find out, like, hey, what's going on? That's when they got this story. The man was able to get the check back that was stolen from his mailbox before they took off again, but that's about all he was able to do. Now, police took his story, they took a picture of the check, and they took information about the weapon that he had, while other officers were looking for this Jeep Grand Cherokee. A little after noon that same day, Pea Ridge officers saw this Jeep Grand Cherokee at a gas station in Pea Ridge and attempted to talk to the occupants, arrest them, whatever it was. The occupants of the vehicle, who were Shauna Cash and Elijah Andenzola, had gone inside the gas station to buy a few things and pay for some gas. They had already pumped their gas, I believe. So when Pea Ridge officers arrived, they were already back in their vehicle. So Pea Ridge officer Kevin Apple pulled up in front of the suspect vehicle, and another officer, Stamps, pulled behind the suspect vehicle, kind of wedging them in there so they really couldn't leave. According to the police affidavit, they were able to look at security footage from that White Oak gas station where the incident happened, and allegedly, according to that footage, Officer Apple got out of his vehicle and tried to engage the suspects, Andenzola and Shauna Cash, in some kind of conversation, trying to, I guess, coax them out of their vehicle, is what I would assume. So 7 seconds after Kevin Apple got out of his vehicle and started trying to talk to the suspects, they put it in reverse and basically nailed Officer Stamps' vehicle. Officer Kevin Apple moved directly in front of that Jeep Grand Cherokee with his firearm drawn, and 3 seconds after striking Officer Stamps' vehicle, Shauna Cash put it in drive and slammed right into Kevin Apple. When the Jeep Grand Cherokee hit Kevin Apple, he was carried on the front of that vehicle into his own vehicle, being wedged in between those two vehicles until Shauna Cash decided to veer a little bit to the right. Officer Kevin Apple was dragged underneath Shauna Cash's vehicle through a lot of that White Oak parking lot. He was dragged through the parking lot, out of view of the cameras, over a curb, and almost into an intersection. A reconstruction team determined that Officer Kevin Apple was dragged 149 feet under Shauna Cash's vehicle. And honestly, it doesn't seem like Shauna Cash or Elijah Andenzola showed an ounce of concern while any of these events were happening. They didn't show an ounce of concern that Kevin Apple was dragged all that way underneath their vehicle. They didn't show an ounce of concern that he was dead on the scene. In that moment, all that they cared about, it seems like, was getting away. Of course, the cold-blooded murder of Officer Kevin Apple elicited more of a search for Shauna Cash and Elijah Andenzola. A Bella Vista police officer was able to spot their vehicle and chase them for quite a ways before they pulled into an area. Both got out of the vehicle and decided to run. Now, because Shauna Cash was the driver of the vehicle, the officer felt it was more important to get Shauna Cash to chase her than it was to chase the other person, being Elijah Andenzola. So he followed Shauna Cash. It seemed like Shauna Cash actually ran for quite a distance before she was running up a ravine and her pants fell down around her ankles. And that is how they were able to stop Shauna Cash. She didn't give up before that time. As for Elijah Andenzola, they received several calls from people saying that Elijah Andenzola had ran around the area of an RV. They went and spoke to the 3 occupants of the RV, who basically swore up and down, like, I don't know who you're talking about. You're searching for someone. Should we be concerned? But they were able to get inside that RV, and Elijah Andenzola was in the RV. So police arrested both Shauna Cash and Elijah Andenzola. Shauna Cash was charged with capital murder, first-degree escape, fleeing by vehicle, 2 counts of aggravated assault, leaving the scene of a personal injury accident, criminal mischief in the first degree, obstruction of governmental operations, and reckless driving. Elijah Andenzola was charged with theft of property, fleeing, escape, obstruction of governmental operations, failure to submit to arrest, fleeing on foot, being an accomplice to capital murder. According to the detective that interviewed Elijah Andenzola after he was arrested, Elijah Andenzola cried a little bit. He whispered that he was so sorry, especially after he heard that the officer died. He told a story, but after he heard that the officer died, he kind of backtracked in his story and changed some of the details. He said that there really wasn't any discussion between him and Shauna after the officer was ran over, except for Shauna said, we can never talk about this. Elijah did say that he had known Shauna since he was 15 years old. He said that he and Shauna had always just been friends until a few weeks earlier when they became romantic, but he had a different girlfriend. I don't know, it was kind of weird. When Shauna was interviewed by police, she described her relationship with Elijah as being much different than the way Elijah described their relationship. Shauna called Elijah her future fiance and said that they had been on again, off again for the last 6 years. Shauna did say that she and Elijah were on their way to Elijah's mother's house when they started being followed by a vehicle. I don't know. I just got the feeling that she was kind of like, I don't know why we were being followed. It was almost like she just didn't mention stopping at a mailbox and stealing the people's mail at all. And Elijah did mention that, by the way. When asked about what happened at the gas station, Shauna Cash said that she has mad issues with stress and she freaks out. Shauna Cash also said that she blacks out sometimes, and she said that she didn't see the cop that was behind them at the gas station until the last second. She said, obviously, she couldn't go forward because there was a cop there, but she did go forward. Then she said that she didn't see the officer. She used a lot of excuses. She had sunglasses on. She couldn't hardly see over the steering wheel. She was looking at her phone. She said at some part of that, Elijah told her to gun it and was telling her where to turn. She did finally admit that she may have hit Officer Kevin Apple, but not like she was trying to hit him. It wasn't intentional or anything. So anyway, Shauna Cash is set to go on trial. I believe the trial is going to be starting on Monday, the actual testimony part of the trial. Elijah's trial is supposed to be starting in March. I'm sorry for my condescending attitude during this. It's just really gets to me. This officer was trying to make an arrest over someone stealing another person's mail, and it turned into him getting ran over and dragged for almost 150 feet. It's so awful. And thoughts and prayers to Kevin Apple's family. I can't imagine what you're going through as the trial is set to start, and I just hope that justice prevails.
Peerage 1212. Peerage 1212. Peerage 1212. Officer Kevin Apple. No response from Peerage 1212. It is with great sorrow that Officer Apple answered his final call on June 26, 2021. His dedication to law enforcement, serving the Lowell, Bethel Heights, Farmington, and Bee Ridge Police Department for the last 23 years was unwavering and genuine. Officer Kevin Apple, your memory will live on. We love you. We miss you. We will keep protecting the citizens of Northwest Arkansas as you would want us to. Your blue, gold, and red family now has the watch from here. The Conclair's Peerage 1212 from his final call.